Still brilliant morning right here on the Raz News Channel. It's time to take a look at news story making headlines around the globe. We'll just go straight to it now. The presidency yesterday expressed shock as Nigerian police force launched a legal bid to stop the ongoing proceedings by the state judicial panel to investigate allegations of police brutality against NSAS protesters. Those protesters were hijacked by hoodlums, leading to a citywide breakdown of law and order for a number of days last month. When our sister station this day make moves to verify the story from the presidency, the official spoken to express surprise at the development. Earlier, the police had filed a suit at the Federal High Court in Abuja, praying for an order to stop various state judicial panels of inquiries probing allegations of right abuses and other acts of brutality against the disbanded Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS, and other police units and tactical units. This came to us a shock to me when I saw it yesterday. Tundu, your take?
Yeah, I mean, because of the general cynicism that a lot of Nigerians feel towards, states and state agencies, I was thinking, is this a case of good cop, bad cop? Because this lawsuit was instituted, but the Inspector General of Police completely disavowed it. So I wasn't sure if it was manipulation or something else, but actually come to think about it and process the information properly, I do believe the claim that the Inspector General did not know about it and the errant legal officers will be, held accountable for what they've done. But even though that claim I now accept, it's still extremely embarrassing. There's obviously a weak link in the chain of command that such a thing can be instituted without the knowledge of the Inspector General. I mean, that is just a disgrace, frankly. And we've had cause to mention this before. You'll recall when President Buhari quickly disbanded the SARS unit, SARS officials were still parading themselves wearing their uniform as if they did not get the memo. This is a recurring problem and it really needs to be addressed. And there's also a deeper problem. Even though the Inspector General has come out to say he's not aware of this lawsuit, there's a problem that was exposed with the Lagos Judicial Panel and the fact that the police witnesses are not being forthcoming and they have to keep adjourning. Doris Okuobi had to say that at this rate, the panel of 6 months will end up taking 2 years because the police witnesses just do not come forth. The counsel to the police tried to explain that it's because they're all over the country. They've been deployed to Borno, to Enugu, they're all over the place. But she demanded that they should be produced because for the interest of speed and justice, their side needs to be heard. So it's causing adjournment after adjournment. The Inspector General would do well to look into that and ensure that the police witnesses that are required in all the states that have instituted judicial panels actually do show up. That will show, going just beyond mere words, that he is supportive of those judicial panels.
Dr. Abati?
Yes. The first key point that Tundu made, I think we should further stretch it, which is that I think it's scandalous that the Inspector General of Police will claim to be unaware of a matter of this importance under his watch. Now, the legal counsel, the police counsel that filed the case is one OM Atoyebi, and putting about 104 persons on defense, from the Attorney General down to the chairpersons of the judicial panels of inquiry and the Attorneys General in all the 36 states of the Federation and the FCT. Now, something of that magnitude, we're surprised that the force management team will say that it is not aware of it. And the case will go to court, it will be filed, and it's only after, sometime yesterday, that the Inspector General of Police, M.A. Adamu, having been thoroughly embarrassed by his own men, that he now issued a directive that there should be an investigation of the First Legal Department. And at the head of the legal team of the police force, having not informed the force management team, should be investigated, and if found guilty of the dereliction of duty, it will be sanctioned accordingly. The question to ask is, could the Inspector General of Police be saving face? Could he possibly be lying to the Nigerian public? Second, the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation has also said that that office is not aware. This is a case that is being taken to court by a federal agency against federal agencies and state agencies.
It's shocking.
So an outsider looking at this will just be wondering whether we are serious or not in Nigeria. And I think, this is clearly an embarrassment to the federal government. You will recall that the judicial panel of inquiry, the panels of inquiry that we have in the 36, not all the 36 states, because 5 states said that they don't have any problem in their state with regard to police brutality, so they refused to set up any panel. But in those other 31 states where we have these judicial panels of inquiry, that came about as a result of a resolution of the National Economic Council, chaired by the Vice President of the Federation, and that meeting was attended by the various state governors. And they resolved that as part of the ways of responding to the NSAS protests and the aftermath, these judicial panels of inquiry should be set up. Don't forget that the protesters themselves, the Nigerian youths, had asked for independent investigation. And the federal government had said, okay, 5 for 5 demands. You have asked for 5 things. We will accede to your 5 demands. So these panels of inquiry came out of that process. So for some people to say, well, the police report to the federal government, a state agency cannot be investigating, well, the origin of it was actually from a federal source, because the National Economic Council is a federal body. Now, if you look at the details of the prayers, of the petition, their prayer is that all the panels of inquiry should be declared unconstitutional, illegal, null and void, and therefore of no effect whatsoever. And they are basing their position on Section 214, subsections 1 and 2 of the Constitution. I see some papers quoting Section 241. Section 241 deals with appeal process to High Court. The original section that I think they are referring to is Section 214, which creates the police force of Nigeria, which says there will be only one police force. So what you are seeing here is that the people who filed the case on behalf of the Nigeria police, I think they are being clever by half. Because their argument is that they do not report to state governments. They report only to the federal government. And that if there is going to be any inquiry of any sort, only the federal government can do it. But the gap in that argument is that it is not the Nigeria police force that is being summoned to appear before judicial panels of inquiry. It is those policemen who have committed acts of police brutality.
Yes.
And the state has a responsibility to ensure justice. So there have been all kinds of arguments. Another argument is that after the October 20 incident, that policemen are now being targeted. Some policemen have been killed, even as the judicial panels of inquiry continue to sit. The most recent case is that of an assistant commissioner of police who was visiting his family in Calabar from Borno, and he got killed. So the argument is that, look, policemen don't want to appear before the panels of inquiry because they think it will further expose their men to danger. But, you know, by way of summary, the point to be made is that nobody is above the laws of Nigeria.
Yeah.
The policemen, by this suit, have raised the question again about federalism because they are trying to hide under federal government. But the same federal government should immediately disown them, and the police should be directed to withdraw that case. That's a follow-up step for the Inspector General of Police. Since he says he's not aware of it, the case was listed for December 3. It has now been rescheduled for December 18. Before that date, they should go and withdraw the case because it's an embarrassment to the Nigerian government, and it is an affront to the federal government of Nigeria, and it's a ridiculous move. It's a frivolous piece of, legal action that should not be allowed to stand.
And by way of footnote, Dr. But the presidency too has expressed shock.
In fact, it is vexatious.
The presidency too has expressed shock. So everybody is expressing shock as regards this. We don't know what's happening,
Which
but it's
in itself is so embarrassing.
It's all shocking.
But do you think we're being played as a country? The good cop, bad cop?
Because for me, you raise a very strong point. How would they file a case on behalf of the police and the IG will not be aware of it? That's all on News Headline. We'll take a short break now. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Morning Show right here on the Rise News channel. It's time to take a look at Africa Business Update, and we've got Ruth Sudhir with us. Hi, Ruth. Good morning.
Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Sundu. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning.
So we begin with the Central Bank Governor's press briefing yesterday in Abuja. He essentially, restated what was in the circulars that were released with respect to the new FX policy that concerns diaspora remittances and the liberalization of the receipts of those remittances. Essentially, he announced that the new FX FX policy kicks off today, December 4th. They announced this yesterday. So this is in line with them setting it up to this point to where they told the banks to close all Naira ledgers so that, recipients of those diaspora remittances can receive the funds, whether they want to in FX cash or in transfers into their account. He also talked about looking at getting, up to between $1 billion to $2 billion monthly in remittances from this venture. He talked about Pakistan, how even in the midst of COVID-19, Pakistan was, still receiving, according to data they've seen, about $2 billion monthly. So they're optimistic about this policy and about what it means for Nigerians, what it means for the balance of payments for the country, and so on and so forth. So that kicks off today. So we'll see how things pan out. But again, as you've seen, the Naira, the exchange rates appreciate. It's a good measure. So again, it kicks off today. To the stock exchange, remember Doctor had a couple questions yesterday, didn't get to, but let's look at the performance of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. This is the second day of losses now. The exchange was down by 0.25% yesterday. The day before yesterday, it was down by 0.24%. But it's at 34th, it's dropped below the 35,000 mark. It's at 34,968 points. That's the all-share index. Now, so you have to ask yourself, is the rally cooling off? Remember, Doctor asked yesterday what could lead to the exchange rally, flipping it on its head. And Doctor, you've nailed it with your question, because you were asking if interest rates were to rise for some reason, if the central bank was to raise interest rates, would that lead to the market cooling off? It would, because now by raising interest rates, you're giving investors another option, a more enticing option to go back into money markets, the money market and also fixed income as well. We already know rates are pretty low. Also, oil prices, depending on how oil prices perform, the stock market, the all-share index is correlated with oil prices. And we know that, I think Michael Wilson will talk about this, OPEC Plus decided to gradually increase production starting from January. Oil prices reacted to that. As long as oil prices stay up, well, the stock market should go up as well. But if things go the other way, then you see the market turning down. But interest rates primarily seem to be the main trigger as of right now. But there's no indication that the central bank is going to raise interest rates for now. So in the short term, we should still see the market still maintaining its highs. But again, there's been a bit of a cooling off. Still, even with the drop yesterday, the market is still up by 30%. We move on to this interesting news in film. Warner Brothers has decided it's going to stream its entire 2021 slate of films on HBO Max. That's its streaming service. And they're going to do this simultaneously with theatrical releases. Now, there is an impact on cinemas here, because, for instance, Film One, which is in Nigeria, signed a distribution deal with Walt Disney Studios in September, where they were going to be releasing their films in English-speaking Anglo-Africa. So I think their market base is in Nigeria, Ghana, and Liberia. And what you're seeing here with cinemas being closed, COVID-19 affecting, people being able to attend films, lots of losses. I mean, stocks in cinemas and theaters dropped yesterday on the news because a lot of revenue is being lost to the theaters, with people now having the extra option of streaming. If you think about African cinemas here in Nigeria, Ghana, Liberia, they've also suffered a lot of losses, right? The losses that they suffered have been as a result of the lockdowns. Cinemas were closed here in Nigeria for about 5 to 6 months. They lost billions in revenue. And as far as the losses are concerned, with this option now of going to streaming, what does the cinema that has invested billions here in Nigeria now do? Okay, do you go to streaming here? You consider streaming in Africa here as well? What are your options? You can't get HBO Max in this region. You can't get Disney Plus. I mean, there's Iroko TV, there's Netflix here as well. But the arrangements overseas will probably affect distribution here. And then even if you were to go to streaming, well, it's a good option. or how many people can afford to stream a movie here for 2 to 3 hours, right? So, there's also the ecosystem around cinemas here in Nigeria. They've had to lay off staff. You can see these popcorn stands now, the food and beverages that are linked to cinemas, watching films, buying popcorn, buying drinks. That ecosystem has also been adversely affected. So, it's a sign of the times, basically, with Warner Brothers choosing to stream these films on HBO Max. They're saying this is just a COVID strategy, and it's only for 2021. They'll see how things go. Remember, a vaccine has already been announced. We'll see how it goes. But, personally, I've only seen 2 movies since the lockdown. Today is Friday. It's a weekend coming up now. People normally go to see films, but theaters have been empty. Revenue is down. And with this new introduction of streaming, it's going to be very interesting to see how they adjust next year.
Yeah, but nobody wants to watch Matrix 4 in their living room.
Yeah.
King Kong and Godzilla in your living room. There's no way. You need a big screen. I'm sorry.
You need a big screen with that big Dolby sound, and classical cinema. But most importantly, Rotus, I want to know, I don't know if we can get a report on how this will impact, unemployment numbers, this industry, the cinema industry, people losing those retail jobs in the cinema sector, how it will impact unemployment numbers, because they've got a sizable number of people too. Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure close to 2,000 to 3,000 people are employed in this field. And those job lines are closing up. That
is correct. The cinemas have already, due to the lockdown, the cinemas have already they've already laid off staff. Due to this lockdown period and the fact that they were not operating. I remember they have fixed costs. They're still paying for the land that they're using. They still have power costs for, running running their operations. Those costs are not going away. So their costs were still at high levels while their revenues had dropped. So they've already had to lay off staff. So it's already affected employment in that sector as well.
Rotus, on the diaspora remittances policy that will start today, you recall that when you first reported the story, I had expressed concern about many of these banks insisting that when you have forex, you collect in naira. But I think with the closure, with the directive that the general naira ledger should be closed, that should help the problem. And all the things that the CBN governor said, yes, he struck all the right notes. All that he said will inspire confidence. But how does the CBN still have in place a mechanism for preventing under-the-table transactions? Because, these are our bankers. They are very clever indeed. The CBN has expressed concern about arbitrage, about round-tripping. Now, I've been hearing that since I opened my first bank account, right? But it's still happening because these bankers, they have a way of sidestepping any policy. The only thing you need to do is come up with a policy and then they will find a way around it. So I think the CBN will need to be very vigilant with monitoring. They used to do periodic checking in the banks. I don't know whether that has become whether there is a digital platform for doing that now. The vigilance is important if the policy must work. We've been celebrating these remittances forever. A major source of forex, a major source of income for families, struggling families in Africa. But has anybody spared a thought for these persons in diaspora who will be sending these remittances? We're told that it has dropped in the last 1 year because of COVID, but it could drop further if there isn't fast economic recovery. Because I know many people in Europe who have lost their jobs. Yeah. People are those the same people who will send money to Mama Ovey, to maintain herself. So there is that pressure on everybody. But I think the CBN, in pursuing this, will just have to be vigilant.
Indeed. Diaspora remittances already dropped by $2 billion. So you're right about that. Right. Yeah.
So if the number initially was about 25 billion, that's about 23 now, going to 20. But it's fine, Rotus. Thank you so much. Have a great Friday. I know Friday used to be a movie day, but it's
exactly. Thank you.
All right. Moving on to Michael Wilson, joining us from London, a little village close to London, I should say. Michael, what's the name of your village? I'm curious. What's the name of your village? I mean to ask you.
Okay. Don't laugh, right, when I tell you the name of the village. You ready for this? Don't make the joke. I know you want to make the joke. It's spelt D-U-M-M-E-R, dumber. We've had the jokes. Right? You are some dumber. That's right. Yeah, look it up. It's in Hampshire.
Go ahead, Michael.
There's no B in there. Right. Quiet day, really. It's the US jobs, which are the big one. I'll come on to those later on. However, the markets, as ever, look ahead. And it looks like Asian stocks particularly are headed for, and this is from a big financial institution, headed for what's called an earnings supercycle next year. 19% growth in US dollar returns from the MSCI index. That's excluding Japan, compared with 15% globally, so it's higher. But this is the big one, and Rotus will be licking his lips, I'm sure, at this one. South Korea is the favourite. Listen to this, forecasting an earnings per share, take this or leave it, of 43% in 2021. So those markets are bound to actually bounce back. The view is that Korean stocks are actually, those South Korean stocks are cheaper than Northern Asian peers, and South Korea is home to manufacturers of this. We'll be hearing a lot about this next year. They're called DRAM, D-R-A-M chips, a segment within technology that is particularly liked. It stands for Dynamic Random Access Memory, and it's a type of semiconductor memory chips used in laptops and smartphones. So look out for that next year. I hope I'll have the opportunity of taking you through it. As far as US-China tensions are concerned, the US Department of Justice is considering a possible deal with Huawei's finance chief Meng Wanzhou, according to reports. She was arrested in Canada last year. She might get returned to China. It's facing charges about alleged violations of sanctions on Iran, and she's suffering under bank fraud charges as well. She may well go back. So, US recap then, as far as the markets are concerned. Towards the end of the US trading session, Pfizer cut in half its delivery targets on account of supply issues. And that update really caused the S&P 500 to retreat from its new intraday record high, given that the coronavirus has got such a grip in the United States. It's telling about over 100,000 now in the United States. However, the other side of that is, and this is keeping people optimism up, is the fact that that stimulus package, growing support for something around about $908 billion, very far short of the $2.4 trillion that the Democrats wanted, but that actually still continues. EU stocks, a mixed day basically, same old themes, and the health crisis and so on. UK hoping to issue the first doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine within a few days, but basically, don't hold your breath, it'll be a long time before it goes to the general population. The European Medicines Agency got a bit of criticism yesterday. In fact, it was a two-way thing. I went through this with you yesterday, about them holding back for more trials, and yet the UK pressed forward, well, you know, you pay as your money, you takes your choice. The EU, Brussels has warned Poland and Hungary not to stand in the way of this €750 billion stimulus recovery plan that they want. If Poland and Hungary exercise their vetoes on this, then they may well be cut out of it, or maybe the fund will get smaller, or there'll be a compromise. I suspect the latter, but that's how things run in Europe right now. Quarantine, UK quarantine rules to be relaxed for top business people in the UK. In each case, listen to this, business trips, they will get... can't believe that civil servants invent this kind of stuff, but I'll give it to you. Business trips which result in a deal which creates or preserves 50 jobs or leads to £100,000 investment order, then they will get... they will be allowed to travel from England to abroad and not have to quarantine when they come back. How will anybody know what anybody's done abroad? It's ridiculous, but there we are. EU, UK, Brexit talks seem to be further apart than ever, but, you know, we get close to the normal dance about getting close to the cliff edge, maybe the end of the year, who knows. Both sides still urgently far apart, as it were, on fishing rights and competition issues. Ireland, Ryanair has placed an order for 75 more Boeing 737 Maxes. You remember that one that was grounded after two fatal crashes? 737 MAX has been grounded since March 2019, so that could be quite a boost for Boeing. Commodities, gold, given a hand by the weakness of the dollar. It's within a trading range of 1,850 an ounce. If it gets above that, then it'll break into new ground. But gold, for the moment, just slightly better than it's been in recent months. And basically, and finally, the day ahead, of course, it's the US jobless figures. Yesterday's weekly ones were slightly improved. Here's the feeling about the rate of job gains is likely to be slowed by the increase in new coronavirus cases that have led to fresh lockdowns in the United States. US economy is expected to have added 440,000 extra jobs compared with 638 in October, but the unemployment rate will probably decrease from to 6.7 from 6.9, so a slight reduction there, relatively bright.
Okay, Michael, I mean, what is happening in India? They've had a 21% rebound in economic growth since, their last lockdown. The economy is not still back to where it used to be in 2019, still about 7.5% lower than where it used to be in 2019. But the rebound is something that I can sort of say is akin to what we know here to be like the miracle of Daman, which was a football incident, something entirely different. What is India doing right? And what can we learn from India?
In India, well, Modi, you've got a business-friendly leader in terms of Modi, who comes from a kind of business background as well, so he's been helping things. One has applaud India, yeah, absolutely, and in terms of getting its business infrastructure going, its administrative things I still think are probably quite bureaucratic. There is extreme poverty still in India. Some of its infrastructure is in a terrible state, including its railways and so on. I would suggest that the figures you're looking at come from a relatively low base. I think that as far as a manufacturing country is concerned, the UK's got very close ties with India. You saw the spat between India and China. India's pushing forward its way onto the world stage. It's not going to be outdone by China. It will in the end, because it simply isn't big enough. But generally speaking, and it's not an autocracy in the same way that China is. But I think it's to be applauded. Yeah, it's good, but it is coming from a relatively low base. And I would be very, very cautious about looking at further growth. Again, we're looking at things in very difficult circumstances, and I think the clearer view will come next year.
Well, quickly, Michael, the Brexit talks, you were optimistic, and I see you are still optimistic, but the talks have hit a big bump, and everything is so fishy. Do you see France? Shifting in any way? And shouldn't by now Britain begin to prepare for a no-deal Brexit? December 31st. Is almost here. And then quickly, what's your global outlook for next week?
Sorry, global view for what?
Global outlook for next week, particularly with regard to Brexit and the EU additional expansion of stimulus packages.
Yeah, all right. Okay, so I don't think we'll hear much about the stimulus package. I mean, the US stimulus package, I know a date of December the 11th has been put on that. It may happen, it may not. I suspect it probably will. So I think they are getting closer there and realising that something needs to be done. And so Joe Biden will have a package of some sort. It won't be anything close to what the Democrats actually want, number one. Number two, you're absolutely right. We ought to be preparing for a no-deal Brexit. And a lot of businesses are looking in bafflement at whether they're going to be able to trade across borders and so on. That's going to be fairly difficult too. The French may or may not concede as far as fishing rights are concerned. It isn't huge. I just feel that I could be completely wrong about this. I just feel as though these discussions always go right to the end, because why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't you do something at the last moment when all the cards are on the table and you understand what all the concessions are? It would be crazy, really, to give in to anything. But, trade talks are a slow death, really, aren't they? And at the end of it, we'll get to a thing where there'll be losers and there'll be winners. But that's what a deal is, Some people win, some people lose. You can't satisfy everybody all the time. I think we will be okay. I think the UK will be satisfied and it will try to get bilateral deals going with large countries. We haven't heard from Joe Biden yet about what his attitude. If it's going to be the same as Obama, then we're in trouble. If it's slightly more accommodating, then sunny our plans await.
All right, thank you so much, Michael from Doma. Anyway, for COVID-19 update now, Aaron Akirjola joins us from Lagos. Aaron,
all right, a very good morning to you, Rufai, and to you, Tundu, out there. Good morning. And Dr. Abati, a pleasure. Good
morning. No poem for Tundun today. You know it's Friday.
It's Friday, so probably I'll save it for Monday.
Wow.
All right, let's get it started. Looking at the global outlook of COVID-19 for the last 24 hours. And coming in, we've seen a massive rise in the number of cases that have actually come in. As a matter of fact, for the first time in the last couple of days, we've seen a rise of about 3%. All right. 773,929 were the numbers that actually came in yesterday, taking it well over 65.2 million cases globally. We can actually see it. All right, the deaths are still up by 13%, with 14,554 coming in the last 24 hours, taking the numbers to 1.5 million. We're still watching out for how things actually play out globally from 191 regions. Like we always say, we always have the latest on COVID-19, and if you want to get the latest on COVID-19 numbers, data, and the latest news, go on to arise.tv. You will always get the latest there, the full breakdown of numbers, not just in Nigeria, but even globally. You get to see some of these numbers there. That's it there on the website there. It's loaded. If you can actually scroll it up and down, you can actually see major news data and everything you need to know about COVID-19 and up-to-date information. All right, moving away from that, let's get into the U.S. right now. And there's been talk about the fact that President-elect Joe Biden, his first act as president, as he has said, will be to tell Americans to commit to 100 days of wearing of face masks as one of the first acts as president. All right, stopping just short of a nationwide mandate he's pushed before to stop the spread of the virus. You know, this marks a massive shift from President Donald Trump's attempt and his own skepticism of mask wearing, and that has contributed to the polarization of mask wearing and the politicization of it all. So let's see how that one actually goes. We'll be watching out for that. Remember, he still has a long way to go up until January before he actually takes over fully. So we'll still keep an eye on that. But still speaking about the U.S., one man is making a backtrack right now, talking about the top diseases expert, Dr. Anthony Fauci. He's apologizing for his remarks that seem to criticize the UK's vaccine approval process. In his words, and I quote, "I have a great deal of confidence in what the UK has done, both scientifically and from a regulation standpoint." Remember, he criticized the UK for their expedient actions towards approving a vaccine. And remember, the UK became the first country in the world to approve the Pfizer vaccine. And at the moment, Dr. June Rain has said to anyone that cares to listen that no corners had been cut when they were vetting the vaccine. As a matter of fact, they started vetting with data dating far back as June. That is how thorough they have been in this particular process. And Anthony Fauci has had to eat his own words and apologize, because some people from the EU bloc are beginning to get skeptical about this particular vaccine, that maybe it's being rushed or something, and which was, I think it was actually out of line for Dr. Anthony Fauci to have said that, if you'd ask me. Now, moving away from that, let's actually say this here. As it stands right now, the Interpol are giving a serious warning to the government world over. We know that governments around the world are preparing to roll out vaccines, and he has said that, talking about Jürgen Stock, the Interpol Secretary General, has said that criminal organizations are planning to infiltrate and disrupt the supply chain, because right now COVID-19 vaccines are being seen as liquid gold, warning governments that there are talks of fake vaccines everywhere, that very soon criminal organizations might want to use this whole hype and euphoria to begin to flood the markets with fake vaccines, that they need to be careful about that. And let's tell you that since we're talking about that, here in Nigeria, the Senate has actually questioned and also mandated, all right, the federal government of Nigeria, that they need to do more in terms of COVID-19 and to make sufficient funds available for the procurement and administration of COVID-19 vaccines here in Nigeria. They've described it as unfortunate and failure from the government to produce a plan for the purchase, distribution, and administration of the therapy, despite the fact that many global nations have been doing massive works and making proactive steps to ensure that they get vaccines into the hands of citizens or give jabs to their citizens. And this, at the moment, Nigeria hasn't done anything. Now, before I just come to you guys, looking at the data from Nigeria, the NCT has said that in the last 24 hours, all right, the numbers that have actually come in, 343 new confirmed cases and 2 deaths have been recorded in the last 24 hours.
Well,
Thank you, Aaron.
Okay,
I wanted to talk about Dr. Fauci.
Yes.
I thought that kind of jingoism was completely beneath him. He made a comment, it started off fair enough, he made a comment about how if America had rushed the way the United Kingdom had,
that was
it would only reinforce...
completely out of line.
He even started off okay, seeming to refer to the peculiarities of their own socio-political climate, saying that if they had rushed the way the UK had done, it would only reinforce the vaccine hesitancy and skepticism among certain people, so that would not have worked for America. Where he really lost me personally was when he started talking about the FDA being the international gold standard and how they are the top and everybody else, your testing standards, your standards fall beneath the FDA. I thought that was really extremely condescending of him to have said. He should have kept it on that basis of, in America, we have a lot of skeptics, and we need to convince the skeptics, so we shouldn't rush, and left it at that, rather than sort of seeming to insult the efforts of the UK, quite frankly. So that apology was in order.
Well, quickly, I think what is important is that he has backtracked, and he has said he has no intention to accuse the British of sloppiness. And he's not the only one who expressed that initial skepticism. The European Medicines Agency also did a similar thing, and they have not backtracked. But they themselves are carrying out their own assessments between December 10 and 19. It's only the EU that is behind. They're doing theirs on December 29 with Pfizer. But I would have loved to comment on the Nigerian case, which is of interest. Maybe Efeni will bring this story, and there will be an opportunity to comment for
All right. Thank you so much, Aaron.